by the 19th.
Stay tuned for updates and great sports content.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sports Scope. I'm your host, Robert Butler, on this first day of August here. At the end of this month, folks, we'll have the start of college football season. Carlos, Mad New Yorker, Chavez backstage, going to ask him about the Tua contract. Jordan Love was signed this week. Giants hard knocks, and get his opinion if there was any trade deadlines that may be worth talking about in the Major League Baseball area, and more. Stand by. Let's take our first and only break. A few announcements, then we'll hit the ground running here on the Real Sports Scope. Hello, Sports Scope followers. The program has seen tremendous growth since going 5 days a week. I just wanted to thank everybody for your cash contributions and sharing the program with friends and families. Just a reminder, if you want to contribute to the program, go to the Cash App, the cash sign, and Sports Scope. There are other ways to contribute to the program listed at the bottom of the screen. If you want to advertise on the program, go to sports, that is sports with an S, another S, scope, SKOPE, at gmail.com, just like it's listed at the bottom of the screen. Thank you and enjoy the program.
I'm Mac, CEO of National Streaming Sports and host of the Mac and Jack Sports Show. You're watching the sharp-dressed man and the big story breaker, Robert Butler, on Sports Scope, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern on National Streaming Sports. Thanks.
All righty then. Got one more commercial, but we'll let it go. Hey, Carlos.
Yo. Happy Thursday.
Might as well be a Thursday.
Or
Friday.
Today.
Yeah, buddy. Good to see you. Let me get your thoughts here on Tampa. Tristan Wirfs. Man, he had a huge deal for a left tackle here. 5 years, $140 million contract. $18 million this year, and it's around $28 million. You know, he was drafted 13th overall the year that Brady came in, the COVID year in 2020.
That's right.
You know, this is one of those picks. I just have zero issue with it. I think that because of the drafting of him and finding that plug and play player, that's a good reason why they've got a ring right now. Here in the last 10 years, it's been a dreadful organization. Other than that, on and off since 95. So
they were in the playoffs for 3 years, right, in a row.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
so,
not prior to him.
No, but with Brady went in, they were in the playoff. Weren't they in the playoff the year before Brady? They couldn't keep.
No, because Winston kept hit 30 touchdowns, 30 interceptions.
Well, they lost that playoff spot to New Orleans, right?
Yeah.
Well, but they were at least.
I just like this guy. I think my point is
he's a cornerstone player.
He's the kind of guy that you give that kind of money to.
Yes.
I could make an argument not to give some of these receivers that kind of money, but a left tackle like that is money, man. Plug and play.
Yeah.
Who's to say a rookie can't make that much of a difference? So what's your thoughts, man? Tristan Wirfs, everybody. Is he worth it?
Yeah, I mean, he's already a Super Bowl winner, right?
Yeah.
He's given this guy an opportunity to play and extend his career with what's his name?
Mayfield,
yeah.
Yeah.
So you know, he's doing what he has to do as a player, and then you know, it's good guys like him get recognition. I agree with you too. I think that the pay rate for every position right now is kind of all like unbalanced, but
it really is.
Players should be getting their value as far as and he's young, right? So he's going to be there.
Yeah, right at like 25, 26.
Yeah, he's going to be there for a good at least 4 seasons minimum. So I mean, I don't see nothing wrong with this. If you're somebody and you don't think that that's a good, you know, you're not paying, you're paying for the wrong type of player. You're not, you know, he's going to be as long as he's there, Tampa Bay can be relevant. How about that? Because he protects the quarterback. So
that's true. I'm looking at this 33rd team website, and it goes on. It gives you the 5 highest paid offensive tackles in the game. See if any of these names say ego may be a problem later on. Andrew Thomas with your Giants. He's number 5 at 23. Lermy Tunsil with the Texans. He's at 4, 25 million. Christian Dershaw, I cannot remember where Dershaw plays. I had to go back and check and see on him. But I know Penei Sewell, not a problem. Now, he's a right tackle,
right.
But I think he can play left, but they just like the way Taylor – he's with the Lions.
Lions, right.
And then, of course, you've got Tristan Wirfs. You name 5 receivers with those contracts, and you're like, well, about year 3 of this contract, he's going to be complaining about more money, talking about instead of $28 million, he wants 34 and some change since he had a better year than Justin Jefferson. Go figure. But that's just part of my philosophy, man. Just I would rather pay a lot of money to the line and alternate receivers and running backs in a perfect world. Right. And I would even maybe pay it Saquon Barkley, 12.5 versus a 34 for Justin Jefferson, if I don't have a adequate guy that's already got a year under his belt.
And then I think it's unbalanced and it's not fair for the big guys because everybody needs alignment.
Yes.
There's no team that is lacking that does not need alignment, right? Every team needs at least 2 or 3 linemen. They're missing. Like even the Tampa Bay Bucks who signed this guy need at least 2 more guys on the line.
Oh yeah.
So and it's the way it's unbalanced, the way the rosters are set, everything goes is going backwards unless you got those high end elite players on offense scoring points in today's game, right? And then you have to have at least one high end elite defensive playmaker on your roster, right? So
yeah.
But that's not gonna, that's neither here nor there, and it just depends on how everything clicks for a season for any team. So
successful teams control the line of scrimmage, man. It seems like such a cliche, but it just is what it is.
I mean,
you got outliers, but it's just rare. That's why they're called outliers.
I think the coaching is so different now that what you're saying, there's only a little bit of truth to that nowadays. You don't have to control anything. You just got to score points. You don't have to control the line. Like, you have to have dynamic players making fast plays to score. They don't think about, we're going to hope. And there's only a few now coaches left that are like, okay, let's not give the ball back to Mahomes. Let's
you're talking time of possession.
Time possession. That's why, those coaches, that's why they're not lasting too long in their score. But you got to score points, man. I keep saying this, and I'll say I will keep repeating it. It used to be 27 points. You have to at least score 27 points. You got to score at least 32 points. Now in today's game, like you got to score, because the problem is the more points you're scoring in today's game, the less defense you're playing on the other end. You're giving up points for a team to catch up to you. So, and I've been on the shows and I keep saying it. If you cannot score 27 points every game, if you can't do it, you're less likely to win that game.
Yeah.
Well,
the one Super Bowl that the Chiefs lost is because their 2 tackles were hurt in the AFC Championship game, and that Tampa team ran roughshod on them.
Yeah, but just like you and anybody else, we don't want to hear about injuries. We want to see next man step up.
I'm saying those are the 2 guys that control, even as good as Mahomes is. By the way, they have a left tackle problem now.
Okay, Robert,
may hold back the Chiefs.
You talk about the Chiefs, but if we took it into perspective about the Chiefs, they haven't had one solid wide receiver that they could trust in the last 2 seasons.
Because they primarily control the line of scrimmage other than the left tackle.
No, because they have Kelsey to get them a first down in any moment. So that's not controlling line of scrimmage. And they have Patrick Mahomes who will run an average of 10 to 15, maybe 20 yards a game. They're not controlling line of scrimmage. They're just getting first downs and scoring. And even when they can't, they at least have a kicker that can kick at least 40 yards. Right. So
you take that center and right tackle out. We'll see how good they are.
Yeah, but then
I'm just telling you, man.
You compare them to the Saints.
Andy Reid used to be an offensive lineman. That's why do you think they controlled the line of scrimmage?
They tried to, but what I'm saying to you is that the idea that you're saying is there's some, like I said, it's only a little bit of truth to it, because right now he's all about, pass, just make sure you got high yardage, high percentage throws, and Patrick Mahomes making sure that he get his 10 yards a game. Like, if you can't stop Patrick Mahomes from running, you're not gonna win that game, because that's the one dynamic that he brings to the table, which is, if you compare the two Super Bowl teams last year, that we thought Brock Purdy couldn't do it, right? We're like, oh, he ain't gonna, and then he did it in a playoff game. He ran at least 20 yards and they won that game. But then he didn't do it in the Super Bowl and they didn't win that game. You get what I'm saying? Like, the dynamic of having a quarterback.
They got Trent Williams. They got a lot better after they got Williams.
So like they need to. Your quarterback has to be able to run the ball, to help you, because you don't have enough linemen at the end of the day, and you have to score points. You can't just be like, we're gonna run the clock out, we're gonna control this line. That's not football today. That's not how it's played. Unfortunately,
controlling the line of scrimmage means keeping pressure off it doesn't necessarily. You're thinking run the ball, stop the run. You're thinking, I'm talking like Jeff Fisher. He has to have a pocket to throw. I know they do a lot of quick twitch stuff. That's what you're saying, right?
Right.
But the truth of the matter is, he still has to do 3-step drops. He does it so good and so fast. You're thinking he's not doing it. He still does. Holmes still does 3-step drops, even against the Ravens. They just drew up some really good plays against Ravens pass rush. A lot of that was coaching, but they do have a very high quality center guard. I mean, they're ranked pretty high. It's not as ranked as high as the Eagles was.
Right.
They have the best, but they had the best play caller and schemer out there that plays exactly up to Mahomes' strength per se.
Right. I mean, the biggest problem is the Eagles.
They still have to control the line. The games that they don't control the line of scrimmage, I can count, and that's usually the ones that they lose, including the teams like Tennessee when they beat them in 21. So it's
like for instance,
it sounds boring, but it is what it is, man.
And when you mention the Eagles, their biggest problem last year, they couldn't win this. They were close in every game. They couldn't
control it in that last game.
They couldn't control any of the games they were in the last 8 games.
Yeah.
And they didn't know whether they were going to run the ball or use PPOs. Like, they were not consistent with anything. They were just like, and then there were games where Brown was getting a lot of yardage, and then there was other games where they were just running the ball with the 2 running backs. Like, they didn't have anything planned out consistently. And that was their problem. And they are. That team could have been very dynamic, and they could have been a little bit better, but they weren't. You didn't hear that they were going to run the ball for 30, at least 30 times, 30 attempts, and you didn't hear that they were going to try to get at least 5 passes down the field. It was just whatever Hurts can get, and that hurt them in the back end, because their planning, their coaching was terrible at the end. So I feel like
they poorly, but for the most part, during this run with Hurts, they've had the best line out there, and
they had a lot of opportunity with that line.
Yeah, especially the year before last, which I said they wouldn't go back though. It'd be a Super Bowl hangover, and of course it was. What's your thoughts about Tua signing a new contract there? I'm not so sure about that one.
Yeah, I mean,
with his injury history and whatnot, what do you think, man?
I wouldn't have signed him for more than 2 years, for more than a year, a year with an option.
Okay.
I would just sign him like that every year, because you don't know what can happen, and he has a injury case that's kind of unique in the concussion thing with the concussions, and so I would have kept him on just small contracts, and if he didn't like it, then he could go somewhere else, because he's just a high risk, low reward. If they don't go to a Super Bowl and win, then that's a terrible contract, right? That's what I
Well, I know, and it really kicks in next year.
Yeah.
Usually they can make it where it's like don't kick in another 2 years, but they really have to go all in this year, and they don't have anybody to go all in with.
Right.
The preseason's already passed. I mean, as far as the off season's already passed,
Right, and they did a good job. The Dolphins did a good job with having Tua play to his potential, surrounding him by a lot of different players who are dynamic, and fast and quick. The problem is, again, you got to keep him upright, and you're not sure that the next hit will be the last hit. And I don't like that thought. That could go with any player, though. To be honest with you, that can go with any player on that field. But with his situation, and there's certain players like that too, right?
Yeah.
The same thing with this guy coming back from Cleveland, the running back. You just like
Chubb, yeah.
You're like, I don't know. He as good and great as it can be. Is putting the money where your mouth is for them? Are you going to get a return on investment? Right. Unfortunately, and if I was a GM, those are the two type of players I would stay away from. As much as they're.
Don't you think that's what the reason why he did this? Because even though I know he's tight with the owner, Chris Greer, the GM, obviously the owner, I think I forgot his name, something Davis or whatever. He sided with Greer over Flores.
Right.
Greer's been there like 12, 14 years. My thing is, brought this up to Scott Morganroth from the South Florida Tribune. It seems like these guys, they know that these are bad extensions, but the guy's good enough to get them to the playoffs. So go ahead and extend him so your job won't be in jeopardy in case, there's a little downside there between moving off one quarterback to another, because it's so hard to find a quarterback that's even competent enough to, win just to get to the playoffs.
Right, but one of the things with the Dolphins,
so it's mainly done out of fear rather than out of what's best for this team going forward.
Yeah, and they should have just took an extra few weeks, because the Dolphins lost a lot of players on defense this year.
Yeah,
and I would have bulked that up, because you got to find balance, man. And one of the reasons that the Dolphins didn't go too far last year was that they gave up too many points during the end of games. So as many injuries that were happening to Tyreek Hill and Waddle and all those guys that got injured, they missed a couple games here and there. But yeah, you still need a deep. You and I, we still always talk about it. Like, you got to have some kind of defense.
Yeah.
And it didn't. It was short. They were shorter last year due to offensive. Their offense was the highest scoring offense for the first 5 games or something, right? Weren't they scoring like 38 points a game or something like that?
Put on Denver in September.
Yeah,
they're
but
about what I thought they was going to be. Really big early,
right?
And then they'll kind of fade as the season goes.
Yeah, every team is different though. That's the funny part. It's like there's no team. You can't compare teams because every team has different
strengths,
and also coaching staffs too that are not. Some are willing to, to push the players, and some are just hold back and play their plays and just hope on repetition and hope that they get what they get because they got that 10 years ago when they ran that play. So,
Yeah. Very finesse team. I don't know what they're going to do. What about Jordan Love there?
Yeah, I mean,
he also got a big extension since last time I talked to you.
Yeah, that's a huge contract for like very little play time, and
yeah,
as much as he could be a good player, a dynamic player. I wouldn't have done it as a GM. I wouldn't have done it. Again, I probably would have given him a year, maybe 2 years. 2 years with the op, one of them being an op year because. Do you feel like seeing him in that little bit of time? Do you feel like that's a good choice? I mean, he's not even a rookie. He's not even a rookie, right? He's like already a seasoned veteran player. So that's part of the reason his contract was huge too, was because he
had to sit for 3 years.
Yeah, he didn't have to sit. They sat him for 3. But
I mean, if you look at that first game he played after his first year. he was terrible was at Kansas City when Rodgers missed that game, I think because of COVID or whatever.
Right.
Or he got close to somebody, and I don't know. It was weird. But anyways, he was horrible. And everybody thought he was bad, including myself. I was like, yeah, they may have dropped the ball on this one. He didn't look great to start the season last year. He kind of took off right around Thanksgiving with the big win over Detroit. And, you know, they have to be really tight with money up there. They don't have an owner. It's the smallest team. It's freezing up there. Green Bay. You get a sense maybe they just trust the guy, you know?
Oh,
He's already been there. This is year 5. And they're getting a discount this year. They didn't even pick up his 5th-year option. They saved $2 or $3 million on his 5th-year option, just signing, and he agreed with it. And now he's got a massive deal.
Yeah, I think it was just one of those. At least you know what you have. You know he's a system. He's a system quarterback. You don't have to waste not just money, right? You don't have to waste a draft pick either.
Yeah.
Right? Because Green Bay is one of those teams that depends on draft picks.
Right. Huge live-off draft picks.
Right. And if you have to pick a quarterback, then you have to finagle your draft picks. And if you have to give, to move up in the draft to get a quarterback, then so I think you hit it on a button. It's a financial deal more than it is
because it might be more money next year if they sign him because the market's been inflated.
Yeah, it's $2 million in the front end plus 4 to 5 draft picks. You don't have to try to get together to get a top 10 quarterback, right?
Yeah, and I was looking at their cap hits for Love, and it's not that much. I mean, they're the team that dots the bleeping I's, man.
Yeah.
I mean, his cap hit's like $20 million this year. It's got to be below like 16%, which is what Mahomes makes. We said, where do you get that number? We're teams that don't win a Super Bowl.
Right.
He broke. It was 12.6. That's Brady had that salary number. He won a Super Bowl once, and then Mahomes with that miracle comeback win against Philadelphia, and that Super Bowl we was just talking about.
Right.
His cap hit was 16.5. Anybody's up in that 20s, 18, 20s. They don't win. They don't win Super Bowls according to the history. But his cap hit doesn't really get difficult until 2028 as far as being over that. I mean, it's like $74 million, but that's 2028.
Right.
This year, next 2 or 3 years with that young team around him. They was the youngest team since 1970 to make the playoffs, man.
Yeah, I bet if that Watson kid didn't get injured, you have so many ifs. If he didn't do this, if a defense should have done that, to me it was like you have so
receiver.
Many, so many ifs right now. You went into a playoffs, you have so many ifs, and you're just signing this quarterback. He's your number one if, right? And then but if you think about it business wise, if you think about him, you're trying to cut corners. That's a smooth deal. That on paper, that's smooth. You hit so many bullets with what can we do next with the money that we get next year?
I can't believe they've hit on so many young players. You just mentioned guys like Christian Watson.
Yeah,
I think there's a guy named Jaden Reed, very fast receiver. They've got kind of a slot guy. That Musgrove guy, that's their tight end. They hit on him.
Yeah.
They hit on their left tackle that was replacing another left tackle.
Well, I think I'm not sure if we could say they're I'm on the screen they look great because they're moving the ball. They're being dynamic, right? But as dynamic as they were, they didn't score 3 times going down the field in the last game that they should have scored. They end up going 4.
You mean the 49ers game?
And then, they punted once, and then they went for a field goal attempt, whatever it is. So I mean, we're watching it. We're like, whoa, they're gonna get better. But then, you start the season and it's a different game because it's, and all you need is one injury, right, on that team, and that team is gonna struggle. One injury to a running back, one injury to a wide receiver, one injury to the actual quarterback, and either one of those 3 get an injury, then it's not. What are you gonna do?
Well, they're a team that's They were 9-8 last year. They could have just got lightning in a bottle, and it could be a complete disaster going forward. But nobody paid any attention because it's Green Bay. But
yeah,
I don't know, man.
I
I didn't think Rodgers was going to be good. I was like, man, this guy's been sitting behind. He's been sitting behind Favre. Say what? Go ahead.
I was like, he wasn't good. He only played like 3 games.
I'm talking about back when he was really young.
When he was young?
Yeah,
but there was.
Remember, he sat 3 years behind Favre.
Right, but after this,
he used to have that unorthodox throw and everything.
Right, but after the second year he sat down, there was already rumblings of Favre. Like, is he going to move? Is he not going to? Is he going to retire? Like, what's his next move? Because they have Aaron Rodgers, and people were like, "Hey, this kid's getting practice. We should put him on the field." Remember, there was rumblings about that, and then
I didn't buy none of that because I just thought that they were just talking nonsense to save their own face.
Well, they did.
Favre was threatening to retire every minute.
Yeah, but remember, same thing happened with Alex Smith and Pat Mahomes. They're like, well, this guy's, if he didn't get hurt and have like 30 surgeries on his leg, Mahomes would probably sat one more season.
Well, all I know is I doubt that. No, that's a different story. I knew Mahomes had a big arm. I knew he was coming in with height just by reading stuff. Alex Smith, I knew he was, game manager, one-on-one quarterback. He was actually drafted over Rodgers. That was crazy. But he was more mature than Rodgers at the time. Back in 2004. But anywho, let's see. What else did we get down here?
It's just crazy that's already football season.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the month, I've been going through my Phil Steele magazine. We've got I was talking about the Nittany Lions yesterday. I think Penn State's got a chance to get into that playoff. Ole Miss, those are 2 teams lurking on the outside, looking in. But I got to get your thoughts, man. They actually went through the draft. Did you watch that last episode of Hard Knocks?
Yeah, I watch it, but I'm like,
you live the draft, so
yeah, you can understand what's going on, anyways. Like by what's you can understand what was happening by the results of what you saw during that you've been seeing before this preseason camps that they have. So
yeah,
and when they have these what you would call it, voluntary workouts. So
yeah, what'd you think, man?
I mean, I will keep repeating this, but I really dislike the attitude and I feel like they were trying to put together a plan while they're trying to get players instead of having a plan and moving from a plan to get players.
Okay.
Right. I think he was trying to be like, what's that word? He was trying to be fluid instead of being rigid, and it killed him. And it's going to kill him. He's going to figure that out this season when it ends. But I think that like the decisions he made, trying to be very open-minded, trying to work with everybody, and the plan shouldn't be where we need 5 players, 2 on defense, such and such position, 3 on offense, such and such. That shouldn't have been the plan. The plan should have been like,
oh, you're saying when they took that safety in the second round, which is kind of high for safety.
Yeah.
You think that was more about need than best available?
I think that they were already reaching because after the Neighbors pick, they were just like, well, I don't know.
Do you think they should have took those trades? I forgot to ask you that. They had 2 trades. Sounds like you didn't watch it last one, but that's okay. I can school you. The one with the offer from the Colts is 15. That would have been 9 spots. Now, I didn't hear what they offered. They probably had to offer a lot.
No, but they were talking about the New England. Look.
No, the trade down. Because you always talking about trading down. Then they got a call from the other New York team, the Jets.
The Jets, yeah.
And then they, that would have moved them down to 10. Do you think they should have took maybe either one of them?
Yeah, I would have sold the pick right off the bat, to be honest with you. I would have sold it to the Colts.
Yeah, they'd probably had to offer a whole lot,
And I would have the Jets one I would stay away from because I would just stay away from the Jets just because there's not that much. They don't have depth. They don't have that much depth. And then the picks that they get,
they didn't even have a second-round pick last year.
Their team's volatile.
They gave it to Green Bay.
Yeah, their team's so volatile that you think you're going to be in the second round, you end up with a third or fourth round because it all depends. And then sometimes they throw in compository picks and all that. But like, I would have took the Colts and dropped. And I just would have built the lineup a little bit. If you're talking about,
I brought that up the other day. Maybe ask for Quentin Nelson.
This is the problem.
He's their star guard.
Yeah, because this is the thing, right? They're talking so much trash and they kept a dumpy quarterback. So they're like, we got to make him, he's the number one player. So then if you say that and you know that he don't need no more weapons, he needs to be protected because that's the reason he went out the last 2 seasons. So he
didn't mention that. We're going to get him a weapon. We're going to get him a weapon.
Yeah, and it's like, well, and it's not that they had the wide receivers were terrible. They're young, but you don't know the potential. If you don't think you have potential on those guys that were there from last year, then get rid of them. Right? Make them part of your trade.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But that's the thing. That's what I'm saying. That I don't feel like Sean went in there with the strong plan. He was trying to be too fluid and trying to make moves and wasn't thinking, and then was just going off at a popularity contest instead of going off the actual needs that you need to fulfill. And at the end of the day, it's always good to get second to fourth round running back, wide receivers than it is to get the first rounders because they're going to end up costing you at the end. Because for one guy, for Neighbors, they could have got 2 or 3 players extra.
Yeah. He did make a really good point about Neighbors at the end there. Was just talking about this. He said, we've got an explosive wide receiver of high caliber that we can control the cost for 5 years, perhaps. Look, and he mentioned about what we've been talking about on here, these inflated wide receiver
I remember
receiver salaries that are, they're getting on top of some of these quarterback salaries.
Right. No, you're right. It became a business move more than it became a roster fulfillment and building depth. And I mean, I don't not like it, but I think they could have done better for themselves. But I'm not the one in charge. It's not my money. And what I want to see from the team is the fact that they have an opportunity to be a playoff team and then they have enough depth to make when they're in the playoffs to win and go further. But now they don't. They have less depth. They have an all-star player and a dumpy quarterback.
I tell you what, though, now that we've already seen how much they love Neighbors, Brian DeBall, they're going to scheme. Now, if you were a fantasy player, they're going to scheme up ways to get this guy the ball like nobody's business.
Who's going to throw him the ball, Robert? Who's throwing him the ball?
Well, I don't. Even if it's Jones, I'm saying the ball's going to try to get him the ball, whether it's successful or not, at the line of scrimmage. You know how the Bengals played Jamar Chase, and they're just going to try to use that. Possibly this is more of a business thing to keep people in the seats because they lost a big playmaker with Barkley, per se.
I'll give you a good example, right?
So it's going to be an interesting just to see how much they get him the ball. I still like to play fantasy in some cases.
And I didn't like this cat. I think they overpaid him. Nobody wants him right now, but Tannehill would probably be a better choice to get Neighbors the ball than Daniel Jones. If you're talking about a guy because the reason why Tannehill is out is because first they overpaid him and he couldn't stay on the field because of small injuries.
Yeah.
But that's the same thing with Daniel Jones. It's like, but the thing is that Tannehill gets yards.
Yeah. I just listened to an interview with Tannehill last week, Donna Rossini, folks, and he's being very picky. Tennessee's paid him so much money that he's kind of hanging out in the Bahamas with his wife or whatever, and he's looking for the ideal situation. I'm surprised he don't have a job already
as a backup, I may have tried to talk him into staying here as a backup, but maybe they see some kind of debilitating injury. Maybe he would have sour grapes. I don't know. But I do think he is a good player, a good plug-and-play guy with the right system around him. If you need him for 3 or 4 games, he should have a job. But I think he's just being picky.
You know, it's not only
It's got to
that.
be like Flacco, just come off the couch and come
Yeah,
right in.
it's not just that. You have to match him at the low end of what his contract was anyways. Right?
It'd be dirt cheap at this point in his career.
I don't know. What was his rate? I think 15. Don't have to pay him like a minimum 15 or something like that. Almost 20.
It would be the minimum.
I think the minimum is between 15.
Well, look at what the Steelers are playing Russell Wilson, like $2 million. But I mean, that's changing the couch in NFL terms.
That only happened because there was other players involved in that trip. In that situation,
it would be really low, man. You know, it wouldn't be a lot of money.
I mean,
1.21 million
is the minimum.
Yeah, and you can add incentives and make it up to 5. He's not going to get 10, 15 at this point. You know, I doubt it because he's going to have to learn a system on the fly. Now we're only a week and a half in. We'll have to find out. You know, so.
You know where he would fit well in? Buffalo.
Buffalo, I don't even know who Allen's backup is, which you're right. Bill's depth chart. That's one to keep an eye on right there. Yeah, Trubisky. Another guy, I don't know why he keeps getting jobs, but he does, you know. Like Nathan Peterman or somebody.
Yeah, but Trubisky's better than Daniel Jones.
Trubisky is a young player. He's a pretty good athlete. You know, you could put him in here and there on some things.
I'm talking about, you know, as far as his stats go. But I mean, whatever. Daniel Jones is a quarterback, and the Giants got to deal with that. Whatever.
Daniel Jones. Back then, they didn't know him. Now he's hot. They all own him. Okay, so I was reading this thing from. Oh, God, what's this guy? Andrew Marchand. He's with The Athletic now. Now, I sent this to you. We've hinted at this before on this program about these, you know, you've got Amazon now going to be doing the NBA, not this year, but next year. TNT still trying to fight to get part of that contract back. But Amazon still does football, you know. They still got the Thursday. And Andrew Marchand, who writes for them, saying that there's a package right now, $42 a month for ESPN, Fox Sports, and TNT direct to consumer called Venue Sports. I guess that would be some kind of app, right? You just put Venue Sports put it on your smart TV or phone. I tell you what, if I was stuck in New York like I was before, you know, they told me I had to wait 6 months to get cable up there in the city. Is that true?
I mean,
but I lived in Manhattan.
It's different now. They broke up so many of these companies, and
okay. But that was in 2002. I'm like, man.
No, they had an antitrust law about with some of these cable companies.
Yeah.
I think between 2004 and 2006.
Okay.
They busted up, and then they gave them regions, like so-and-so company can have this region of the city and this in Long Island, and so-and-so can do this, you know. So it was like Time Warner and what was the other one? The owner of the Knicks, whatever he owned.
Yeah.
That company. And so they were just.
But is that what it's called?
No, it's not MSG. It was man. It's coming to my head when I'm not thinking about it. But Cablevision. It's Cablevision.
Yeah.
So So between Time Warner and Cablevision, that was like New York was split in different quadrants and even in the different boroughs. So some people had Time Warner and some people had Cablevision.
Yeah.
And like,
but I'll tell you what though, if they got ESPN and it covered the SEC network, I'm sure it does, and it covered anything that was on ABC. If I was in dire straits and had to cut off everything and just needed sports, that's not a bad little package combo, man. Right?
I mean,
I thought that they was going to do anyways. It's too hard to find all these streaming services.
Yeah, and I don't get many SEC games, except for the ones that they are. No, at that
you
time.
Don't have the SEC network up there.
They have when they play the major games like the Alabama games, the Tennessee games, like
You'll get that.
Like the ones that were already going to be on that, we're going to be broadcasting nationally, like Tennessee versus Florida, Alabama versus Tennessee, Alabama versus a lot of Alabama games. Mm-hmm. But the night games that they played at night, so they could be on national TV anyways, right?
Yeah.
And they were on CBS and CBS Sports, so I got to see that, and I got to see those. But if I wanted to watch Kentucky versus Vanderbilt or Arkansas versus Ole Miss, like it was very rare that I'd catch that game because it's not a national broadcast, and they would play at 12 in the afternoon, right? So you would get like an ACC game instead of that because ACC has more regional schools in the Northeast, like so you would see Syracuse and whoever was in the ACC, right?
A lot of the 11 o'clock games are bad, except now this year they've got
Rutgers. You'd see Rutgers play, and you're like, man, and Rutgers had a decent team.
You'd much rather watch an Ole Miss play, huh?
Yeah, I know, right? I'd rather watch an SEC team play, but that was by
better brought up.
That was just by choice as well, opinion news. So it's like, nothing against Rutgers because they've had good seasons. Even last year they had a few good games, and messed up a couple of bowl games for some of their division rivals. But look, like it's got down to a point now where you got to pay for everything. So
individually.
I
knew it eventually come out to this, and I think as the future goes on, you'll be able to get it like that. Yeah, they got a lot of crappy stations I don't watch and I'm paying for no reason,
There's only so much prime time
Booking channel and all that crap,
Yeah, there's only so much prime time availability as well, right?
Yeah.
So what the prime time is what 2 to 10 o'clock? Those are prime time times. So those like
in maybe a central time zone.
Yeah, I mean, well, because the primetime games that are affected, usually the second on the second schedule, second game would be like the West Coast having prime time. Like I saw a lot of Pac-12 games, Oregon and what's that team? USC, and then those independent teams like that are on NBC, they take up their primetime slots. Notre Dame. They take a primetime slot. So there's only so much.
That's always been the issue with the college game.
There's always so much
too many. They overlap too many games now.
Yeah.
And they don't really do anything. Hey, did you see anything that stuck out amongst the Major League Baseball trade deadline?
Yeah. So the Yankees getting Jazz Chisholm, that was good for them. I feel like they could have made a few more moves in their pitching staff. To strengthen that, but you could tell that their focus is on hitting and trying to beat teams down with hitting. And they're so hand tied with their huge contracts that they gave out to LeMahieu. They had given out contracts to Stanton, the contract that's even Garrett Cole's contract, like all those huge, and now the Judge and Soto contract, those huge contracts have a ripple effect and have affected them. I just thought they should have kind of moved a few pitchers and maybe got some other pitchers, like even trade, just to move guys around that are not doing that well right now and pitching for the Yankees. But they're going to be okay because they have hitters. The Mets, they picked up a few. They did try to bolster their bullpen. They got Swazik from Seattle.
Okay.
Barbane.
Oh, they brought in a player from Seattle. Wow.
Yeah. They brought in a few pitchers. I would say mid-level pitchers, but they still brought him in because their pitching staff is hurting. They got Kodai Senga back. He played that Friday. He pitched very well, and then he ended up falling backwards and getting a calf strain. So he's out for the season unless they make the playoffs. He could come back in October if and only if the Mets make the playoffs. So because of the way that his recovery and injury is. Who else?
Yeah.
They had moved up a young kid about a month and a half ago, Scott. He got injured. They moved him back down. So it was good to see this kid Scott, though, man. He has some incredible. He's very mature. He's pitching well, and he just didn't get an opportunity to win a game yet. But then he got injured, so they had to move him down. It's just pitching is everybody. But
It's always about getting that middle relief.
Yeah,
that's what decides these games in the playoffs. If you look at it,
right. So, and the Mets just finished a series with the Braves a few days ago.
Yeah.
And people and the Braves, they beat the Braves twice, and then the Braves beat them twice. But people are like, well, when the Mets came back and beat the Twins, they're like, well, why couldn't they beat the Braves like that? Because the Braves have so much. Their pitching is so in depth. I mean, they're one of those teams that have one of the and pitching wise.
Yeah, I was to ask you. You familiar with this Jorge Soler, Luke
Soler?
Jackson?
Yeah,
trade with the Giants. I mean, did that help out? Was that better for the Braves or the Giants?
I think Soler because the Braves had him before. They won a World Series with him, and then he moved on after that to different places. But him coming back solidifies their hitting because right now the Braves they've lost players.
Constantly losing.
Yeah, they have a lot of injuries with Acuna and some of these guys being out, so they need support in that retrospect. And so Soler gives them a bat. And they're gonna get some guys back eventually, Albies and them. But the Braves, they have a good pitching staff, and they're able to keep the game close because their pitching staff's very.
That's the same team they've had 30 years ago.
No, I mean, but
they never really have a lot of great hitters, but they do have that depth of pitching.
Right.
And ain't nothing changed since we were kids.
I know, but Robert, what the crazy part is as many guys that have gone down for the Braves, I could probably maybe 4 guys pitching.
Okay.
They found 5 guys to replace the 4 guys that went down, and and they're the 5th guy is in and out of the lineup because they move him up and down to the minors, and so as other players come back
from that farm system, and
then they come back from injury. But man, it's just I got a chance to watch. I was going to go to a game, didn't get a chance to go to a game, but I did sit and watch. I did get the opportunity to watch it because it was on a local channel, one of the rarest times that it was on a local channel. And I sat there with my wife and we're watching this and we're like, what? This Braves team just, some of these pitchers were just like, wow. Like, and this was a point where the Mets, they've always struggled hitting the ball, but in the last 3 weeks, the last month, they've been actually above 250 hitting the ball as a team. Yeah. And a lot of the players are up in the 270s and above, and you're like, wow. And the pitching's just been remarkable in those 2 games that they played against the Mets. And there was a point, I think the Mets haven't hit in like 12 innings.
Yeah, man.
After they beat so it was like, it was crazy. It was just like, and
I'm still shocked that Mets were so bad to start. And now they're in this thing, man.
With baseball, I don't ever get shocked when I hear like, oh, there's an injury or this pitcher's something happened.
It's a long season.
Because the season's so long and like and as much as you want,
Braves still got about a 2.5 game edge on. Yeah, you're right. The Braves should have been cratered by Strider is gone for he went out early.
He went out, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you would think that they were done. But, Philadelphia, 65 games. Depends on how well you're playing in October. Remember, I said I think now it's a wild guess. I don't follow baseball like I do other sport or NFL or nothing, but Seattle over Philadelphia in the World Series.
Yeah, and here's another thing, like even Trout.
Of course, Houston's already done caught Seattle, so go figure.
Even a great player like Trout, he's out for the season now. It's, he just got injured.
Wondering why won't one of those teams go after it? The Braves could use a Trout, They never go after the big fish until the fish has got some gray on his little whiskers,
when they
remember when they got Gary Sheffield, man, I was amped up, but that was not Gary Sheffield of San Diego.
No, and I think that's why their actual philosophy is like, let's just stick to pitching. Everybody needs pitching at the end of the season. We have it. A lot of guys don't. Mind you, they almost got to a World Series. And all these guys that are hitting, they can get cold. It's harder to hit yourself to win games than it is to pitch yourself out of game and win by pitching, right? And the reason that is because, you know, if you're not hitting, who's hitting behind you or who's in front of you, and you know, and then you gotta sometimes you get caught up in the psyche, like, oh, the guy in front of me is hitting, I got to get him off that base, I got to score him, you know, I got to get him in, and then you strike out because you're forcing it. And then the third player comes in and is like, oh no, this pitcher's good because the guy in front of me struck out. So now I don't know how to hit him. Like, you know, it's a mind game then. I mean, we could have sat here, looked at the Braves and the Dodgers and the Padres, who had great hitters, and they only had like three guys hitting for them in the last playoffs. They were hitting over 250, Robert. 3 guys on each team.
Well, San Diego's been red hot.
You know, like San Diego did have Soto. They had all these guys, and none of those Machado. They had what's his name with the braids? His dad. I can't remember his name.
Strider.
No, the San Diego they have what's his name?
Freddie Freeman.
No, with the braids. Tatis. They have Fernando Tatis. So you're looking at guys that should be hitting over 300. And only one of them was hitting over 250, and the others were less than 250.
Is he hurt again, by the way, Tatis?
Tatis? I'm not sure. Haven't watched a podcast.
Boy, he got a huge contract. Man.
Yeah.
He's been banged up ever since, too. That's another 10-year contract. Now you got me started on that.
Yeah, but the baseball last year and in the playoffs, if you look at the stats, if you guys get an opportunity, look at all those big major teams that had hitting. And they did not. So a lot of these guys did not hit in the playoffs, and that was most of the reason why they didn't go past the first or second round was because
you didn't happen to stumble on that Pete Rose documentary that's been going around on HBO, have you?
So I heard that one just came out recently.
It's called Charlie Hustle. It's really good, man.
Yeah, how is Pete Rose or hey, it's Pete Rose or something like that? What is it called?
Yeah, hey, Charlie Hustle or something like that.
Yeah. It's on HBO, right?
It's really good, yeah. And he talked about it was called the Big Red Machine.
Right.
Johnny Bench is arguably the greatest catcher of all time. Joe Morgan, Perez. These guys are before me and you were born, our dad's era. No, but I hear people talking about them. They lost a few World Series, one to the Mets, I want to say. Or was it the Mets? No, it was somebody that later went to it was somebody with Oakland or whatever. And they had and he says, no, I mean, it wasn't this or that cost us. It was Tom Seaver sawing our bats off. He was just like nobody's business. Now that may have been in the I think it may have been to the Mets to get into the World Series. But they later went on to win it in 75 and 76. But just goes what you say. You really need that. You need timely hitting, but mainly you really need that pitching and that bullpen help. Not unless you got guys like Roger Clemens who could go about 8 or 9 innings.
Oh, you don't get that nowadays.
Kurt Schilling, you just don't do that no more.
You know, and
Randy Johnson.
There's a big argument. People are like, wow, you know, and the older guys sit back and like, well, this guy's not going to go more than 7 innings. Like, yeah, but how much? You know, we don't think about these are younger guys. They've been playing baseball since they were 8 years old. They've been in travel leagues. Like all they do is play baseball. When we grew up, when our dads and our grandparents were growing up, they had different sports. Wasn't that organized? You know, guys played for fun. Guys played at church, but it's different. Like this is organized sports for young kids since the late 80s, early 90s has been growing and has become a financial dynamic and business that us parents now are suffering because we got to pay a lot of money for our kids to play sports. Yeah. No matter what sport it is. And, you know, it's, and then you get in your mind, well, maybe my kid can become a professional. So then you start pumping more money in, right? So they're playing from the time they're 10 years old.
You're saying that's bad for injuries?
Of course, it's a wear and tear. Like if they're
not playing different sports like they were back in the day.
That's another thing
Too
too.
much concentration, and plus, I think that's why a lot of these players burn out. You know, Tyreek Cohen retired today, and he's only 29 years old.
Kids eat different things. Back in the day, kids were just eating peanut butter sandwiches. A lot of kids have like they have like, you know, allergies and nuts, and you know, or they have allergies to milk or whatever. You know, they have all these different things now that was more rare in the past, and it is now. Who's to say if it was rare because of the time frame and they didn't know about it? But still, like, you know, there's a lot of ailments and sicknesses that there are now that there wasn't back then either. So,
yeah, but I tell you what, if you get a chance, that Pete Rose documentary is good. He claims now that he's not gambled in 6 months. You know his story, don't you?
Yeah, I know his story
for gambling. Yeah,
yeah, and he was calling
as a manager player. He's gambling on games and whatnot, and lied about it.
He's calling from the bench in his own dugout. No, but
it's like he never really admitted he had a problem. Like, yeah, dude, you got a problem. Look how much you love baseball, and he threw it around. You know, but later on he did. You know, he's in his 80s. He looks pretty good to be like 83.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I've watched MLB when I had it a few years back. I'm about to say a year or 2 years ago. I had MLB Network. And he'd come in and he's teaching people how to hit and how to bunt and stuff. And I'm like, this guy, for the information that he has is amazing. And why he didn't create some kind of academy for baseball or something, like, you know, he would have made something and have helped a lot of people because kids don't know how to hit nowadays. A lot of professionals.
He's a hit king. And
yeah,
you know how that ended, because some guy involved in his investigation back in '89 made a comment on a radio show when he was on Fox or MLB. I think it was Fox, but he may have been on MLB too. And the guy said something about him messing around with an underage girl. He heard about the radio interview, sued the guy. Then they got discovery and found out that there may be some kind of truth. That was in the Me Too movement in 17.
Right.
And Rose kind of, screwed himself, got put.
And it was because
his own worst enemy, Yeah,
and it was because he was talking about he used to go out and party at night with girls and stuff. And then somebody mentioned that, but the guy who was trying to put up this information was saying that Pete Rose was messing with younger girls when he was playing.
Yes.
Right. So and you're right. It was
they were minors.
Yes, and there was. I mean, I don't know. I'm not gonna say it wasn't true, but it's like. It's just when you talk about Pete Rose, it's just like a tornado of just bad news. Somebody mentioned here in New York media, on one of the radio stations, that, you know, as great as he was a player on the field, there's a reason why baseball didn't want him back, besides just the scandal of betting. It's just his character, how he talks. Yeah. And his demeanor. Like, there was a lot of things that were keeping him from the Hall of Fame, not just the fact that he was a heavy gambler. So,
and some girl asked him about it when he was doing an appearance for the Phillies, because he won a 1980 World Series with them.
Right.
And this girl was like young woman, 22 years old. He called her babe, and that he got in trouble for that. He's stuck in a different generation, Yeah,
I mean.
It's like, well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to call you babe. And this kept walking like, no, you just mad you got caught.
It's harder to talk to older people and not, and then just understand how they're talking and what they're talking about. And you're just like, wait a minute, was that a racist remark, or was that
sexist? Yeah,
sexist. Was that like,
too flirty or whatever?
Yeah, it's just, and you can't change those kind of people. Those people already, they're older, they're set in their ways. So it's like,
Yeah. I don't know. I don't feel as bad for him. I'm just glad he claims he quit gambling. So,
I mean,
look, he's 80-something years. You would hate for him to get put in the Hall of Fame after the guy dies.
I mean, he's already in the Hall of Fame. He's in there as a player for World Championship teams. He should just.
I do think he is on some kind of plaque or something. So it's not. Yeah. I think he's making a bigger deal out of it than what it is.
Right. I mean,
he's still recognized as the all-time hit leader.
Right.
Although this documentary hints that he may have took steroids. Check it out when you get a chance.
Now you got me interested. I'm going to take care of watch that. So.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming on, man. And see you next week. We can talk some college football if you want to. I got my Phil Steele magazine.
Yeah, man. Let's put together
round up some of your playoff potential teams.
Playoffs?
Yeah. I mean, we got all August to do it. Don't get me wrong, but
man, it goes quick. It goes quick. So
yeah, it's true. All right, man. The Mad New Yorker.
Enjoy the games.